Welcome to Grandpa, Goddess of Poetry. Today I'm talking about a wonderful American poet, James Weldon Johnson, who was born in 1871 and died in 1938 when his car was hit by a train on a level crossing. A terrible, sad ending. Johnson was a very well-educated African-American. He was a diplomat who served as U.S. consul in Nicaragua and Venezuela in the early part of the 20th century. He was a leading member of the Harlem Renaissance, that great outpouring of creativity, poetry, painting, performing arts in New York before World War II mainly. He was also a civil rights activist, and he worked for the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. He was an admirable man, and his poetry was highly respected and well received during his life too. His poem I'm going to read today is called "The Glory of the Day Was in Her Face," and it talks about a beautiful woman. I don't know if it draws on a real life situation, but I find it very beautiful and moving, and it reminds me of another poem by a very different sort of person from the previous century. I'll tell you who, and I think it'd be interesting to compare that poem with this one I'm about to read, James Weldon Johnson's "The Glory of the Day Was in Her Face." Here we are. The glory of the day was in her face, the beauty of the night was in her eyes, and over all her loveliness, the grace of morning blushing in the early skies. And in her voice the calling of the dove, like music of a sweet, melodious part. And in her smile the breaking light of love, and all the gentle virtues of her heart. And now the glorious day, the beauteous night, the birds that signal to their mates at dawn, to my dull ears, to my tear-blinded sight, are one with all the dead, since she is gone. That's such a beautiful sort of anthem to a beautiful woman who, sadly, it appears, has died, but she lives on in that beautiful poem, and that poem will live in my memory. So in a sense, the lady herself lives on. And that poem reminds me, I don't know if you can guess, but it reminds me of George Gordon Lord Byron's amazing poem, "She Walks in Beauty Like the Night," that of course was written almost a century earlier. Byron wrote this about a beautiful lady that he met at a ball one evening, and the lady had been recently widowed, though she was quite young, and she was dressed all in black with diamonds glinting in her hair, and Byron was completely bowled over by her beauty, as he sometimes was on such occasions, and he went off and wrote this amazing poem that I love, and it reminds me of James Weldon Johnson's work. See what you think of this. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Thus allowed that tender light which heaven to gaudy days denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace, which waves in every raven tress, and softly lightens up her face, when thoughts secretly sweet express, how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the thoughts that glow, and tell of days in goodness spent, in a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. I think there's a lot of similarity between those two poems. Isn't it interesting how two such very different people, James Weldon Johnson in New York in the 20th century and Lord Byron in London in the 19th century, should come up with two such poems. The glory of the day was in her face, the beauty of the night was in her eyes. That's James Weldon Johnson. And she walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies. That's Byron. I don't know which you prefer. I think they're both pretty wonderful. Thanks for listening today.